NATO members are relying on Italy's safety certifications for the alliance's new Alliance ground surveillance drone fleet, as questions remain about the aircraft's ability to fly through Europe's regulated airspace. The status of the airworthiness certification process is outlined in a recent government response to a parliamentary inquiry lodged by the far-left political party Die Linke. According to the document, Berlin is aware that the Italian government issued a so-called military-type certification in late October for the Northrop Grumman-made Global Hawk Block 40 drones, 5 of which will be stationed in Sigonella, Sicily, in 2020. But officials said they have no information about the scope of an additional certificate required for actual operation of the drones alongside civilian aircraft, or whether the drones are authorized to fly in Italian airspace at all.
It's a high-altitude aircraft, and it's designed for ground reconnaissance. And with the arrival of that aircraft in Sigonella today, I think Nato had a historical marker. For the first time, after 22 hours, NATO aircraft was ferried from California to Sigonella. Great achievement. For the first time, it's a really NATO-owned and operated capability. So NATO and its decision bodies can really use that at their discretion. And this is a little bit different from nations providing a capability to NATO. So NATO has more, it has its own capability, if you will.
Today it started its journey in California. It took about 22 hours and it flew nonstop here, which was actually not even the limit of its endurance. It has a 30-hour endurance. And to put that in perspective, it could fly from the North Pole to the South Pole nonstop if it wanted to. So it got here, but it's about 2/3 of a fuel tank. Well, the beauty of the mission, not just the plane, but the people itself, is it could be tasked for a full range of missions, all the way from crisis response for humanitarian disaster relief to border security, all the way up to an Article 5 response. So there's no crisis that this plane could not respond to. Host nation Italy has been fantastic. They provide this hangar, they're doing the construction work. As you heard me talk earlier, they gave the license and registration, never been done. So they just stepped up to the plate.
Operating military, unmanned aircraft safely in shared airspace remains an unsolved problem that contractors on both sides of the Atlantic are trying to address. That is why, for now, drone flights through regulated airspace require special corridors temporarily closed to all other traffic, a burdensome process especially in densely populated regions. That will be the case for NATO's drones traversing Germany, according to the Defense Ministry's written response, dated December 18. The aircraft are slated to use the same corridor limited to one drone at a time previously established for the U.S. Air Force. The service sent its own Global Hawks from Sigonella to support operations under the European Reassurance Initiative in the Baltic region, most recently during 3 flights in February, April, and May. Collision avoidance by way of sensors and autonomy. André Hunko, point man for European policy at Die Linke in the German parliament, criticized what he called a lack of airworthiness in the new NATO Global Hawk drones. Unmanned aircraft crash significantly more often than manned planes, including larger variants operating at high or medium altitude, he said in a statement. Without the use of collision avoidance features, the alliance's drones would crash sooner or later, Hunko predicted, calling on the German government to prohibit flights over Germany. Die Linke rejects the use of all types of military drones, whereas the country's other parties have largely supported the idea that the German military should be in the business of unmanned aviation for defense. Still, there is no consensus here on the use of armed drones. German defense officials are still reeling from their experience with a previous, ill-fated attempt to field a large drone for intelligence collection. The Eurohawk, another Global Hawk derivative, was cancelled in 2013 in large part because it turned out to be uncertifiable to fly in German airspace. It remains to be seen what types of missions the new NATO drones are expected to fly and whether the certification restrictions are serious enough to hamper their desired effectiveness. Surveillance missions outside of Europe may be no problem, but traveling to hot spots such as the Baltics and the Black Sea could reopen. Meanwhile, NATO announced the arrival of the second aircraft of its drone fleet in Sicily last week. This second ferry flight across the Atlantic is another major achievement on our road to establishing a leading-edge intelligence surveillance and reconnaissance (ISR) capability for all NATO allies. U.S. Air Force BRIG General Philip Stewart, the Alliance Ground Surveillance Force Commander, was quoted as saying in a statement, "The $1.5 billion program, which includes the aircraft and Airbus-made ground stations, is slated to be fully operational in 2022 following several years of delays."
Okay, we're dipping away.
Hawkeye request on the active for chase.
Service light.
Engine start.
BTC copy is cleared. Engine start.
Okay, I have us on a heading of 204.